We'll cut that out. But hey, what's up, guys? Another episode of Go to Market Crossroads. Zach, we missed you last week. Or I guess Harris just joked that he did not miss you, but I missed you, Zach. So it's good.
Missed
It's
you
good to see your
guys.
face.
Well, I didn't miss Zach because I signed up for Octave. And so I am in the process of ramping up our messaging and making it what I think is going to be way, way freaking better. So I felt like I was with you, in spirit and in product and so.
Yeah, I must say, getting to that Slack notification at the end of the day for the new user signups, that one hit me here, man. That was fun to see.
I'm excited. Our outbound function, as we talked a little bit, is like, it's not our number one growth lever, ironically, but it is important and it's something we do. And so I'm excited because it's come a long way. Messaging stuff has come a long way in the last few years. It's pretty dizzying, I think. So anyway, I felt like I was with you, is my point.
Yeah, well,
Zach, did you buy Outbound Sync yet, or is that?
I haven't.
Well, he has a free tier, so he has a much better, more friendly adoption model because we are small. But I do suspect we'll sign up.
We will get there. I need to hire this damn sales team and get some more help first and get myself. I was being what's the right word? Not scolded, but close to that word. One of our investors, he's like, you are too in the business. You need to be on top of the business. I know, we're getting there. Need to hire some people.
Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right. And then tools, more outbound. We're gonna need to sync it, no doubt.
For sure. What do you use? Maybe this is, hope you don't mind me asking, what do you use for your CRM at Octave?
We are a little bit of HubSpot, and transparently, we are exploring now, do we continue with HubSpot or do we have HubSpot and Salesforce? And actually, curious, you guys consult me. We are going to be a product-led sales motion, so where we have this, decent clip and growing number of users that sign up, varying degrees of qualified. Like we have some people that are, you're a student and you sign up with your, .edu address, and like, okay, we can toss those right out, have a good fun experience, but like, that's fine, and then we have large enterprises. And so we're trying to figure out, do we need to treat those two buckets separately, of like HubSpot being more in charge of closer to top of funnel, the marketing automation, all the life cycle processes with the leads that are signing up for the app, and then do we pull into Salesforce when we have a more significant opportunity that we're going to lead a more direct sales motion with? And so that's kind of what we're exploring right now. But like, yeah, curious your guys' thoughts on like what you would say
for me.
Huh?
This is like a discovery call for me. This is great.
Bring it on. I'm an open book.
What about Salesforce? Like, what? I guess I really am about to get into a discovery call, which I need to be careful of.
No,
I will. I won't do a discovery call sales pitch because I don't think anyone wants to hear that. But I'll get to the conclusion.
Yeah.
The conclusion would be HubSpot can do both a PLG motion and a enterprise deal motion. I think it's more of an education element of understanding what functionality you were looking for that you see in Salesforce, because I shouldn't say undoubtedly, but I'd say more than likely HubSpot has it.
Mhm.
If I was doing a discovery, I'd ask you a lot of questions to lead to that outcome, but that's where I would position you to. I think where we, especially with investors too, there's almost like a why bother notion with HubSpot, and that eventually you just need to move on to Salesforce, and so you might as well do it now. But I think that's a outdated thinking, and HubSpot's functionality has gotten pretty comparable, with very few exceptions.
I mean, this is an area I'm like, and maybe, take this offline and do the truly put me on the couch and do discovery. But like, I do have I have some bias coming from like, every company I've worked at has been Salesforce. And like, I'm trying, I feel like HubSpot, if you're doing a startup, you start with HubSpot. So I've kind of started us there ourselves. Obviously, I'm not a RevOps pro. I'm definitely not I'm not a Salesforce pro. I'm, definitely not. So I have some like, all right, I know it a little better. I know the ceiling of like where I can go with Salesforce more. So that I have probably some biases that are like leading me that like, okay, like I need this for the easy stuff, but then I'm gonna need dashboards and MRR versus ARR reporting that like only Salesforce, and like I could be totally wrong to your point, but it's like that's where my head is probably just like naturally pulling me.
And that's where we started the business, because I'm the same way. All my background's in Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
And all our initial customers that we sold are your persona of like, hey, I'm scaling a technology company.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is Salesforce. I'm starting on HubSpot. Like, I can't scale with me. And it's like, that is a valid concern and understandable one. I think it's more of one of those things where kind of that, like 3 years ago when we were doing this, it was like, hey, this is totally like a feature problem. And now it's not a feature problem, it's an education problem. And so we are happy to have that conversation, because I think it's a fun one. But I mean, Harris, you've been in both sides you support both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say like, to me, like there's a couple things. I think this is just an interesting, it's not just about Octave. I think this is just like obviously a much, much bigger question about, blue versus orange. Which the fact that it's even that is an incredible accomplishment by HubSpot.
Right.
Because Salesforce literally coined the term CRM. I think that HubSpot has done it. And I think that, if you asked anybody at Salesforce who's being honest, I think they'd say, oh yeah, respect. Like you've done a good job getting yourself into the conversation. So I think regardless, that in of itself is kind of interesting to me. And it's funny watching like ADIO. The reason I asked was because people have been talking about ADIO a little bit lately, and it's interesting because it's modular, but I've just been wondering if it seems like a really solid product. And so, no shade to them at all. I think it looks really interesting and really smart people like it. But I do feel like HubSpot and Salesforce is kind of the default conversation. And I think that the third place it's like far down in terms of what those other tools can do right now. So the two things that I heard that I like tend to know a little bit more about are like, okay, we're PLG. So we've got these new signups coming up, and there's this like, I think an idea of like, where do the not yet or unqualified leads, like where do they go? And so we're about to launch support for the lead object in Salesforce, and the way HubSpot handles the lead object and the way Salesforce handles the lead object are very different. In Salesforce, a lead object, in my understanding, is that it's kind of like, that's like your filter. Everybody got like, in theory, if you're following the Salesforce product, everyone gets dumped into a lead, and then like, so all of your signups would get dumped into the lead object. And then there would be this like decision point of like, okay, there's a conversion event, it becomes an account and a contact. And then we would kind of have opportunities or deals associated with those accounts and contacts. Whereas with HubSpot, the data model's like, companies and contacts exist. And then like a lead is like a pre-deal, where there's like an event where there's like a lead event, and now this contact who I already know, I already have their email address, they just signed up for my product, or they just triggered some like usage threshold, and now it's a lead for my sales team to follow up with them and say, hey, it looks like in Octave you just tried to spin up your Xth number ICP, and like looking at, it looks like you're in CPG. Well, we work with this company that has this use case. Like, do you want to hop on a call? We can talk about it. So I think like from the top of funnel perspective, but then others, like a lot of companies use both, and they use HubSpot as the catching ground. They have all their marketing stuff in there. And then there's this triggering event where then it gets pushed into Salesforce from there. I think that like that, funny enough, seems to be like a lot of times the answer is like both. I've not heard people like switch completely because they don't necessarily want to use Pardot or Marketo or something like that. It does seem like HubSpot sticks around, but there's some of these workflows, and where the other one that I hear is like revenue recognition, where it can be harder to get like MRR and stuff like that inside of HubSpot. That is an area where it seems like we're tiny, so I just use ChartMogul. But if I needed that data in HubSpot, I don't know. I tried integrating Stripe, and it was 2 months, and it was just a nightmare. So I do think there are some areas where it's like a legit thing that Salesforce is better at certain things. I think maybe there's workarounds, maybe there's better ways to do it, but anyway, that's kind of my like rambling reaction to kind of what we talked about so far.
Yeah, let's keep the pain lid covered on Stripe now too. Let's not go there.
Yeah, I thought they were supposed to be the easy ones. It's like you were supposed to be the hero.
I swear to God, I had like, oh, I'm starting this company and like, ooh, we're gonna integrate with Stripe at some point. I'm gonna get to like be a user of like the world's best startup, like the world's best private company, and like now I'm just like, I can't believe this is how it works. This is painful. And I mean, and some stuff, Brandon, we're like, deals we're selling with your team, and like we're trying to do the right things and do like, we're small, but trying to start to get advanced and do like sell through co-sell stuff, and like subscription management within Stripe is just, it's mind-boggling how difficult it is. And like you can't make a mistake on anything. Again, now I said we shouldn't open this and now I'm doing that. But it's like you can't make a mistake, you mess up on anything, it creates churn if you have to cancel something, and it's like what is that I'm an admin, can I tell you that's not churn? Anyways.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, no offense to Stripe, but it's like, you were supposed to be different. It's been really tricky for us working with it too. It's like, I thought you were easy. Maybe they are easy. Maybe it's better compared to.
If you sell t-shirts on like a Shopify store, I think it's like, you are golden.
But I thought it was like made for SaaS. Maybe it's better than Bill.com, and maybe we need to go spend a week trying to integrate with Bill.com, and then we'll change our mind. I don't know.
Totally. But
yeah, that comes back to like, how do you think about your go-to-market motions and like the one-time recurring and usage? I mean, those are like the three big ones that we think about. Yes, there's like, how do you acquire the customers? Like in terms of, are we product-led? Are we, one stage, two stage, ABM, et cetera? But like, those are like the three core concepts as it relates to how transactions occur. Yeah, and Stripe I mean, they all have their flaws, but they're anyways. Well, Harris, how was your past week, man?
Things are good. So yeah, it's funny enough. It's like a big Salesforce sprint for us right now. We've got 3 big features that we're pushing out. So our Salesforce integration will be out of beta. The way we do product is, when I say beta, it's like we build features kind of one at a time. We kind of round out the integration rather than like a version 1 of everything and then a version 2 of everything that's more polished. So we did like accounts and contacts and then logging activities to the email object. Then we added the task object, and then we added, block lists. Then we added writing to the lead object. And then like once that kind of full set of features is like they're all good, then I consider it out of beta, because it's just kind of like allows us to ship faster and sell faster, because not every customer needs every feature just because of the nature of what we do. So it'll be out of beta, but like we've had stable customers on Salesforce for a few months who are really happy. So that's like that's a big one for me. And then new pricing, which we had talked about, went live on that. And it has gone exceptionally well. I've got like 7 demos today, tomorrow. Deals are closing much faster. And the like pricing part of the call is not awkward as it used to be, where like they're wondering why, I'm wondering why it is what it is. And we're like, okay, but like these tiers like, kind of make sense, but I don't understand what half of these features are. So we just like boiled it way down. There's probably like 95% fewer words on the page, and boiled it down to like the usage metric is how many emails you send and receive. And I think that we can talk about it, whatever you guys want. We can talk about it more, but I feel like this is the thing that I think that I've got this right enough that it's what we need to like.
So was it
grow a lot from here?
Was the unlock, was it changing the metric, or just more clearly getting rid? Like we have one metric and get rid of all the other stuff, or is it like actually a new metric? Yeah,
well, we changed the metric, but before it was kind of like the usage tiers were. So one tier was like 40,000 events, a webhook payloads event a month, which nobody really understood what that meant. I mean, I understand what it means, but I'm the loser that's been working on this for 2 years. And then the next tier up was like 400,000 events, and so really it was mostly feature gating. Mm-hmm. But people didn't really know what the features were. And funny thing is, I never felt comfortable enforcing it. So if they were like, look, like I just really want to log this to the task, like that's just like how I use Salesforce. In theory, I was supposed to be charging them more for that. But like it just felt like I shouldn't. It never felt like reasonable. That I understand in general why feature gates exist. In the case of our product, as a data sync product, it was like, look, our job is to get you the data. What you do with it once it's in your system is kind of your thing. It's not really. We change like 6 characters in an API call. It doesn't really change anything for us. So it was changing the metric and then just being like, whatever, we're not going to charge for that. Like, if you're going to do, And so just like being okay, being like, that's not the thing to charge for. Because I noticed on a few bigger deals that we closed, it was always because they were higher volume. And so when I said, oh yeah, it's 800 MRR or whatever, 800 a month, they were like, yeah, that's fine. Like I'm sending 100 and whatever thousand plus emails a month. Like I get that costs you money. So it was changing it and simplifying it because when it would like really, when a call was going great and I just like had to like understand what was going on, I would ask people like, what's your sending volume? And they were always able to answer it very easily. And so when we changed that to the value metric, like everything got easier because everybody thinks about it in those terms for our product. So that was like the unlock. We'll see. I mean, I could be regretting this in a month, but so far, like it's been like night and day.
You mentioned, it sounds like it's helping once you have the deal in terms of conversion rate. So it sounds like the conversion rate is increasing, which is awesome. You mentioned 7, I think it was 7 demos. Is that more than normal or is that?
Yeah. Our site conversion is also up. So we're booking more demos from the pricing page. It's the second most visited page on our site. First is the homepage. And then this whatever, I don't remember what interval this was, but let's just say it was 800 visits. And then the pricing page was like 450. And then the product page was like 150 or whatever. So it's like, it drops off pretty dramatically, but it's like homepage, pricing page. And so that pricing page conversion is way up from before. We don't have a freemium thing like you guys have built. So it's a little bit of a different mechanic than what you have, but yeah.
It's like interesting that like that gut check of like it's like I know what that feels like. Ooh, is this hard to stand behind? Like it's like like pricing is there's a psychological component to it too that's like really interesting. And it's like like what am I'm having to really like contort myself here to explain this is like a good like we need to go back to the drawing. It's funny. I remember at like LinkedIn back in the day, like one of the on the sales team there, like one of the things I loved was like they were ruthless about pricing, like until you got into their like you are a strategic key account. It was like literally here are package 1, 2, 3, and 4 with a preset discount, and then here's our volume discounting list. That's it was like no negotiations, like here's how it works. How many pages do you want ads on? How many job slots? I was like, and it was just like as a sales rep, like I just remember the feeling of like, oh, like this is so easy. I know exactly what to say. You can call anybody at this company, you're gonna get the same answer. It's like there's like all these like psychological components that like go into that too. And it's like I've like we're on like V3 of our pricing already, and it's like it's definitely it's like ooh, you can feel it in your gut where you're just like this isn't right. Like, you just gotta keep going, but like what's simple, easy, it's in the customer's like universe of understanding too, where they're not like you're not making. I need you to calculate some new metric to bring to me. Then they're just like, I don't know
exactly.
No.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's are good, right? So if I'm hiring, how many jobs? If I'm running ads, how many impressions or whatever. Those are I mean, and then for sales nav, how many seats? How many sales reps do you have? Right? Like all of those make sense. Okay, I've got 3 people, 3 seats. We were weird because we were sandwiched between the sequencer and the CRM, who have different models. And so, but ultimately I was like, look, we're not like Snowflake, but I mean, if you had to say, we're more like a Snowflake or whatever. We're a utility. We build the pipe. We charge for how much water runs through the pipe. And when I looked at like other data products and I saw like Segment and how their pricing pages worked, it was like, we need to be like that. I mean, it's a little different, but like we need to move in that direction. Yeah. And Approximated.app was a really great one. I talked to the founder, Carter. I talked to him a bunch. He was super, super helpful. And they have a hardcore like pure usage. We didn't go to pure usage, but it's approximated to no pun intended, but it's approximately their approximately a usage-based model with some overages. And then we incorporated rollovers from Clay, which people are now familiar with. So I definitely stole some notes from Clay too, which we talk about a lot on the pod. But
yeah. Going back to switching topics a little bit, but connecting it with the idea of psychology and even pricing to an extent. How this is not a political commentary. The question is more about with markets and uncertainty. I'm just curious to see what you guys are seeing, what you're monitoring, because I'm sure similar to the folks listening to this episode, we're all kind of seeing, like, just trying to figure out what's going on. And so I'd just love to get y'all's perspective on, hey, here's how we're approaching it. Here's what we're seeing even in our core business to help us navigate this. I think that'd be maybe an interesting segment for us to park on for a sec.
I'd say, I guess I'm glad I'm not out fundraising right now. Like the macro, like in the part of the snow globe I'm floating in, like that would probably be like where the macro is like, ooh, appetite is chilled there for sure. And like I hear that with people I'm talking to. In terms of our customers, I haven't felt it yet. We're not immune from it, but we're still small. It's early days. It's like the companies I'm dealing with, they're still gonna grow, and like they're still trying to, like our use case number one for us is like, hey, we're sending static, dusty templates that are the same to everybody. Like, we got to change that even more in a tougher environment, right? So it's like, I haven't, honestly, it hasn't come into our conversations yet. It's not that I'm not like prepared for it and thinking about it. Like, it's definitely, we're all osmosing it to some degree, but I'd say like the nature of like our product is still, you can sign up for free. You can have a cool, like you're able to get a lot more out of it, Harris, because like you know the you know CRM, you know Clay, you're familiar with the API, and like if we give you a JSON payload to like you're gonna be more and like our product is still a bit like that. So it's like we are like, you have to be a growing, not at the bleeding edge, but like front of the pack type customer. So they're a little more insulated. That's what we're experiencing. But I don't know, Harris. I'm curious to hear what you're seeing.
I mean, well, I definitely have heard the same about the fundraising environment. I have a buddy who's what is it? A GP? Mm-hmm. Like he runs a fund. He helps run a fund, and they're having a hard time finding LPs, the investors, for their next round. He said it's like 3 times harder than it needs to be because of uncertainty. Yeah. So I think that's like a thing, obviously. I mean, I've been following CNBC just kind of out of curiosity. Also because I took a bunch of the normal sites off my phone because I was just checking the news too much. And I was like, okay, business news is always a little bit kind of sanitized. It's a little less like, because I want to know what's going on, but I don't need to know like every little thing. On the business side, so this is like I'm cautious to like make this point, but I mean, I feel like we're a 3-person company. Fundamentally, while I'm very privileged, if I'm gonna like build a business, things need to be changing in the economy. People need to be doing things differently. There needs to be like this movement. If things are like static and the people who are currently winning keep winning for whatever that means, if the current structure doesn't change, then there's no room for a startup or for like a new way or a different way. And so like fundamentally my company exists because people are open to doing things in a different way. And I think when there's a lot of change happening, there's a lot more opportunity. Right. There's like the extreme of this where you sound like kind of like Peter Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, where you're like, oh, chaos is a ladder. And somebody, I think he wasn't trying to be critical, but this could be interpreted multiple ways. He was like, oh, you kind of remind me of like Rick's Cafe in Casablanca, where, that like they have this restaurant and like anybody can eat there. Like either side of the conflict can eat there. And they're just happy to serve them or whatever. And so like, not that this is quite like that, but I worry about the like moral ambiguity of what I'm stating. I'm not saying
you're an arms deal.
Right. Yeah, as long as people are buying, I'm selling. So I'm not saying that, but I do believe that as someone who's not like currently in like a dominant position in our system, that to move the move, things have to change. There has to be movement. If everything's stuck, then there's no movement, right? So fundamentally, I mean, we are continuing to grow just like we have grown. Every single month is just like the months before. We've had some leads come in with a very high level of urgency because they have opportunities that they're pursuing, and we facilitate that. I'm sure others are dealing with a lot of uncertainty where it's less the case. But like everyone's always trying to grow, and anyway, so very, very complicated, but that's kind of how I'm processing what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense without sounding like weird?
Some degree of entropy is like, that is required in our world.
It's required. Otherwise, like there's no thing here, right? Like things have to be changing. And if things are changing more rapidly, as long as they're not like collapsing, then that like can be good.
Right? Yeah. With any type of disruption, there are winners and losers. And
what are you seeing, Brendan? Like,
you have a lot of visibility. What do you think?
Yeah, bigger projects. I'm curious. Like,
I would say, I mean, we are I'm absolutely monitoring it because it's pretty. So I'd say this: I mean, there's direct and indirect. When I say direct, there are companies like immediate right now that we look at who are impacted by policies. So think anything that's tariff related that have hard goods. But there's also the indirect impact of both the like psychology, but also the trickle effect of the market that's going to impact even like the software side, like where you guys are. So, I mean, I look every week. We look at like indicators, and so I look at, hey, how many qualified deals are we seeing week over week? Is that on track or behind, or is it ahead? And then I'm looking at the product distribution of like understanding the budgetary mindset of our prospects. Like, are we seeing this like fixed project mindset as opposed to what we typically see, which is more of a managed service mindset where we're a fractional resource for them? And then of course looking at retention. So we are monitoring it. I would say what we are seeing is actually our demand hasn't been impacted, thankfully. And in fact, we're ahead of plan, which is good. I am seeing a little bit more distribution on the like how do we tighten our budget versus kind of going all in on some things. So that's been an emerging trend that I'm watching. And the retention side is thankfully been pretty stable so far. But so it's a bit of a wait and see. But I do think it's something that it'd be foolish not to be monitoring it. But that's how we are at least taking some proactive measures, at least to see the data. Now, what do we do with that data is a totally different question. But that's where we're at. And so I think, and then to your earlier point, Zach, the companies that have a compelling offer that gets into how do I scale without constraints, meaning how do I continue to grow my business without the cost associated with that, or at least the assumed cost of like people and whatnot, should have a competitive advantage. And I mean, that's a lot of what HubSpot talked about at their Spotlight event last week. Is just what is AI like? What's the true unlock of AI? And that's that whole scale without constraints that I was just mentioning. So it's an interesting time to say the least. And I mean, the 90-day reprieve, it will be. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in 90 days because I think there's a little bit of optimism, but no one really knows, and the uncertainty creates a lot of disruption.
Yeah. I'm not a political commentator, but I think that like fundamentally it was once again a change election, and things are changing. I don't know if they're changing for the better or for the worse. Time will tell. But it's like, and that affects the economy, and that affects clearly the global economy. I mean, if you're looking at like talking to people in Europe, because we have users all over the world, there's just a lot of people are feeling that. It kind of reminds me of like, back in the 2020 days where it feels like there's this kind of global event happening, and everyone's kind of like processing, what does this mean and how do I respond and stuff. It's obviously different, but it reminds me of that. There's this like shockwave that's happening.
Yeah. Well, guys, I know we're about at time, so I'll give you guys any final words that either you have as we kind of wrap up as it relates to what's on your mind, what was going on last week, or something you're looking forward to going into the rest of the week.
Hope everybody got their taxes in or filed their extension. No, this is fun. I like today. Felt a little more open-ended. Talked about a bunch of stuff, so it's a fun chat.
We filed early. Hire a good accountant. I finally, after I started working for myself in 2019, I finally found a great accountant. Shout out to him. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want everybody to go work with him and then raise my rates. And I don't know if he wants that kind of exposure. He's a pretty
Well, you
private
just
guy.
need a workout arrangement. You get like for the referrals, you get a kicker, or your rate goes down. This should be a win-win.
You're right. I'm fixed mindset. I need a growth mindset. I'm sure he would disagree. He would say, no, I don't want a growth mindset. I want our accounting to be boring. I say, yes, I agree, Michael. I'll give you a hint. His name is Michael. Yeah, he's the best. So got our accountant, got our taxes filed, and feels great. But I mean, pricing. People say this all the time, but having experienced it, pricing is this incredible lever for your business. And I mean, frankly, like you may not need to run outbound campaigns. You might not need outbound sync. You might need to just like look at your pricing and make sure it makes sense to users. I have experienced like last week versus this week feels really different. I'm curious to see how it plays out. But having heard people say how important pricing is for years and years and years, I feel like I finally just leaned in and made a really big change. And I can definitely feel a difference after being so incrementalist for so long and being afraid to lose and not playing to win. So I think that we... That's awesome. So I'm just going to keep watching that and hope I didn't actually make a huge mistake.
Hey, it's very, very, what's the Jeff Bezos, very few things are a one-way door, right?
That's true. That's true. I can always work for Uber.
Yeah. I filed my taxes yesterday. Not because my accountant is terrible, but when you have your business and personal all wrapped up together, it is a pain in the booty. So I had to send money to New York and Arizona yesterday, which was a lot of fun. I live in Atlanta for those who are listening, so that was not fun. The only last thought I would have, listening to you guys speak, and then I mentioned earlier I went to a HubSpot event in New York last week, and there's this whole thing around AI that I really liked how HubSpot framed it of like how do we move from novelty to necessity, and like the two big blockers right now that at least their positioning is accessibility and then impact, and so this idea of like how do I like what step do I even take in the terms of accessibility? I know I should embrace this, but I have no idea what to do, and then the impact side of like okay, I've invested in all this, but I'm not seeing this transformational impact to my business. And so I've been thinking a lot about that and just realizing like, I think we all know this, but AI is not a silver bullet. Even like having Octave. Octave is a great solution, but it still requires human intervention. And so there's like this idea of like, how do we make sure that we weave the story the right way, that this is an additive enabler, but the human plus AI is where it gets pretty interesting. And I think the idea of like set and forget it because I have AI is like a fool's errand. And there's just a lot to potentially unpack that for future episodes. But that's something I've been noodling a lot around is even for us thinking about like, do we need to even think about AI embedded service? Idea of like, how do we sit on top of that to make it not only accessible, but to create impact, which sounds kind of ironic of like, hey, you need to have a human services on top of your AI. But I do think there's something there that I'm starting to play around with in my head.
For sure.
This stuff is hard. What y'all do is hard. I have been lately like, I think I need a RevOps person to help me build out and like fix some association things. And like, I should be having something summarizing these things. I mean, I know HubSpot makes it easy, but I'm bullish on agencies and experts. I'll just say that. Like, stuff is not easy to adopt.
No.
Really. And let alone being a big org. I can't imagine. Having like 250 employees. Like, did you see that really quick? I know we're supposed to hang up, but did you see the note from the Shopify guy? Toby, not guy, the founder of Shopify.
He probably goes, his LinkedIn profile is probably like the Shopify guy.
Yeah. That's like how people used to brand themselves on Twitter, right? Like, I'm the storage guy in
I'm the car dealership guy.
Yeah. But that how they expect people to kind of like use default AI. I thought it was, I usually hate this LinkedIn stuff that everyone's posting about, but I thought it was really compelling memo. And I thought it was like, to me, it emphasized like how complex this is. And I had to really have to change how you think about stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
That was awesome. All right.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good catching up. Enjoy the rest of the week.
See y'all.